A very warm good evening to all of you. Law Essentials welcomes you to the webinar on artificial intelligence and law. I am Mohammad Faransi, founder at Law Essentials and a student of St. Joseph's College of Law, Bengaluru. Today, we are privileged to have with us Advocate Sai Sushanth. He is a cyber law expert and a techno legal consultant, and he is also the CEO at Sushanth IT Law Associates. Thank you so much, sir, for devoting your precious time for conducting this webinar. We are extremely honored for this opportunity. Artificial intelligence is the capacity of computers or other machines to exhibit or simulate intelligent behavior. The human willingness to push the limits of our own intellect has led us to a significant milestone in the history of innovation, that is, the development of artificial intelligence. In the past 10 years, our society has experienced a digital revolution, the implications of which are as stunning as those of the Industrial Revolution, yet are even more remarkable because these changes take place in a fraction of time. Thus, the legal fraternity should actively take part in collaborative research with the computer science department in order to evolve in area of artificial intelligence. Thank you so much, sir, for joining with us today. Here we go ahead with the much awaited event. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Farhan. A good evening to all the participants who are part of this webinar. And I must definitely appreciate Law Essentials because having a webinar on artificial intelligence and law clearly showcases the thought leadership with regard to the emergence of the new technology and the legalities arising thereof. I must once again congratulate them, and I'm extremely delighted that they have come up with this interesting topic on artificial intelligence and law. So that being so, I thought of just sharing with you certain legal aspects and legalities arising out of artificial intelligence. And let me tell you something: AI, if not on the horizon, has already begun its usage in terms of various verticals. And I can clearly tell you that you and I are already part of the AI ecosystem. Why? Because the moment we are trying to make use of internet, specifically, shall I say, Google, I think we are all, with or without our knowledge, making use of artificial intelligence. Why? The moment we start doing a lot of Google search and about various topics, we clearly get suggestive remarks or suggestions from Google. How does it work? It works merely on the basis of AI. Not just that, when you look at the OTT platforms like Amazon Prime, Netflix, and things like that, as also the YouTube, you are very clear that you have the next videos that would be populated to be played in order. How does all these come together? I think it's just the artificial intelligence that comes in. So AI as a technology is completely gaining center stage attention, if not already during this period of pandemic. And I can also tell you that a lot of applications of AI have already been made in different verticals, whether be it in the IT industry, be it in the manufacturing industries, be it in startup ecosystems, be it in tools, be it in movies, be it in any kinds of platforms and things like that. So that being so, I think it's very, very imperative that AI as a technology is likely to bring in huge amount of legal policy, regulatory aspects. I think there seems to be some argument that the existing laws and the legal system is made fairly applicable to AI. But I can only tell you that given the intrinsic nature of artificial intelligence, I think the legal policy regulatory aspects of AI must be appropriately handled and tackled. And AI as a legal discipline is likely to emerge as a new distinctive area of legal practice, not just with regard to the legal professionals, but also I can tell you that AI can also be increasingly used in the justice dispensation system. So that being so, I think this is the kind of landscape that AI brings on the table. So I thought of just bringing forth these perspectives before I get on to my presentation. Could you go to the next slide, please? This is the usual response I evoke when I'm taking a web session. So I'm sure that I'm not able to see the videos of yours, but I'm sure your face would be like this. Why? Specifically of a topic which is not much spoken of in the academic front, not just in the academical front, but also when I talk about lawyers and the legal community. I think all of us are thoroughly unprepared on this concept of artificial intelligence. Let's go a bit more further. Next slide, please. AI has now turned out to be the new flavor of the times, and India has become one of its first nations to come up with an artificial intelligence portal. What does that mean? That means that the artificial intelligence is now being the new season, and I can tell you that AI.gov.in is one of the portals that our honorable IT minister has launched. That being so, I think artificial intelligence is going to play a very important role, not just in terms of the corporate world, but also from the governance perspective. Next slide, please. More specifically, shall I say that a lot of retailers have now started to use artificial intelligence during this period of COVID-19. How they're making use of these AI tools to boost their sales, marketing, and also for providing enhanced customer experience. So that's the kind of technological advantage that AI brings. And that being so, there are going to be huge amount of legal challenges as we discuss forward on AI and law. Next slide, please. Now, the Karnataka government has gone one step further. They have come up with an AI-driven hospital pod to treat COVID-19 patients. Wow, it's a fantastic phenomena. Now, AI is not just used for governance, but can also be used in the healthcare industry. Already, we started having AI applications that actually come up with suggestive medicines and suggestive diagnosis for different medical conditions of patients, and they're also trying to be providing some kinds of analysis by collecting your vitals and vital medical parameters. And that being so, AI is also playing a very, very important role in terms of healthcare. Next slide, please. Now, Facebook has come up with this wonderful option. Now, it wants to make use of artificial intelligence for the purpose of ensuring that it can remember everything for you. Wow, that's a phenomenal principle. But however, I can also assure you that this particular concept is likely to see lots of legal, policy, and regulatory aspects. Why? Given the fact that there are data protection laws that are populated in different countries, I think the concept of remembering anything and everything would start posing some kinds of threats to these kinds of data protection principles. Next slide, please. The term I mean, AI has also started to see a lot of ethical considerations. Why? Because AI is nothing but a system that is purely ruthless. So, what do you mean by ruthless? I can tell you that it does not have any kinds of human emotions or any kinds of, shall I say, human humanity and things like that. And however, slowly it has started to receive the concept of ethical AI. Why? AI in ethics is now turning out to be a ground reality. More specifically, shall I say, from an ethical legal perspective. Why? Because not just because of the different ways in which AI is used, but also AI is likely to bring in some ethical ramifications as well. So we I thought of just bringing forth this through an example, which we're going to discuss as we proceed further. Next slide, please. So this is one case study I thought of sharing with all of you. Recently, as we are all in this phase of pandemic, a lot of organizations are now trying to increasingly make use of artificial intelligence for a variety of purposes. Well, one of these universities tried to come up with an AI algorithmic system which was detecting frauds and which was also trying to decide and evaluate the exams and exam results of particular students. So that being so, I think this is one of the ways in which the education system is actually trying to leverage AI. So that being so, the Dutch courts have recently come up with this judgment of pulling down the AI algorithmic system, specifically in the light of the protests being done by the students on the basis that their exam results were actually decided by an algorithm. Wow. It's not the universities that are now deciding the exam results, but AI algorithms are now intrinsically used by various educational institutions for evaluating papers as also for the purpose of examination results. That's the kind of leverage that AI has. But however, as I told you, is going to bring in huge amount of legal considerations. Next slide, please. Now, Face app. I'm sure that most of you are conversant with this famous application that started receiving a lot of traction, specifically with a lot of celebrities trying to make use of it. What does it app do? This apps simply switches your look from a young look to an old look. It will make you aware how you could look in your older age. So, how is this possible? This application makes use of artificial intelligence for switching the aged looks. I think that being so, this app brings in a huge amount of privacy issues. Why? Because a face is the new passport of the recent times, and I can tell you clearly that these kinds of transactions bring in huge amount of data privacy and personal privacy issues, because it's ultimately going to be the face that is going to be the new passport of the times. And I can tell you that personal privacy invasions can also happen with the help of this application. Next slide, please. Now, chatbots. Now, let's go to the concept of chatbots. Now, chatbots are some applications that are actually pre-programmed robots that are interfaced with various websites and mobile applications. And that being so, they're intrinsically used for a variety of purposes. Let me tell you a classic example. Now, all of us are aware of this application called Swiggy, which is a food delivery platform. And in case you wish to have raise any kinds of complaints with regard to your orders, I think it's the Swiggy's chatbot which would be initially addressing your concerns. That being so, I can tell you it gathers information from you based on predetermined questions, and based on the responses that you give, I think it connects you to the respective representative. I think these are the new flavors of the times, specifically during this COVID-19. I think chatbots are being used left, right, and center for a variety of applications. And not just that, an interesting question that comes before us is, how do you legally treat a chatbot? Is it a company? Is it an entity? Is it an agent? Or is it a representation of the respective application? So these are going to bring a large number of legal perspectives regarding the legal status and also regarding the legal personality of these chatbots. So that's the kind of intrinsic nature that AI has with regard to law. And these chatbots are now being used for a variety of different purposes. More specifically, in order to ensure that the customer enhanced experience is provided 24/7. So that's the kind of advantage that these chatbots have. But however, since they basically run on data, I think it's going to bring in huge amount of privacy and data protection perspectives. Next slide, please. Now, this slide, as you are all seeing, it's a wonderful case of AI in astronomics. Why? All along, we thought that it's just the astronauts who are going to the space. Wow! Lo and behold, that's just a perception. Now, this particular AI companion that you are able to see on the screen is called as AI astronaut companion, and the research center in one particular country in the world has come up with this AI companion, and this was sent along with the astronaut to the space. Okay, and ultimately, it started gathering all the information with regard to the particular astronaut, his likes, his dislikes, his favorite music, his favorite food, and things like that. Now, at a time when it started interacting more and more with the respective astronaut, more and more accurate it became. That being so, the astronaut was wanted to do his work, so he quietly asked the astronaut companion to just keep quiet, so that he could mostly focus on his particular work. Well, the biggest challenge that started arising in this scenario is the AI astronaut companion replied back saying that, hey, look, You can't be so rude to me, and I'm here to help you, and you better not use such kinds of language to me. So that's the kind of ethical question that this companion has asked. And lo and behold, that the astronaut was wonderstruck, and this information was passed to the space center, and finally they had to shut the algorithm off in order to keep the issue at halt. So I think these are just wake up calls in understanding the kinds of ground realities that AI is going to bring on the table from the ethical as also from the legal perspective. Next slide, please. Now, the state of Illinois became one of the first states and the country in the world to come up with a legislation on artificial intelligence. Now, I can tell you that as I'm talking to you this evening, this is one of the first pieces of a law in terms of artificial intelligence. Now, the state of Illinois has come up with this AI Video Conferencing Act, which is called the AI Video Interview Act. And there's a very unique system that's being adopted in the state of Illinois. Well, the recruitments have now started gaining a step more further with regard to usage of AI. Now, all along, we've seen that the social platforms are now being used for recruitments. But just imagine this: the whole concept of interviewing people and analyzing their performance has now got automated. Now, just imagine that the company asks you, "Hey, look, please give me your video resume, and please introduce yourself and send us a video." So when the applicants start sending the videos to the company makes use of certain AI tools to analyze the performance and to understand whether they're fit for this particular job or not. So they value the candidate based on the AI program. That being so, in that kind of activities, I think the AI Video Conferencing Act, that is AI Video Interview Act, has brought in some kinds of legal obligations and the kinds of compliance measures that companies need to clearly adopt from AI legal perspective. So that's very, very limited in terms of video interviews, but it does not talk of any other principles as what AI brings on the table from a legal perspective. So this is just the law in the eye, shall I say, and we're yet to see the convergence of AI and law being a ground reality. Next slide, please. Now, facial recognition has now started receiving a lot of attention. Why? Specifically during COVID 19, I think a lot of organizations are now intrinsically making use of a facial recognition. But however, this facial recognition brings around variety of legal policy regulatory aspects. There could be data breach, there could be privacy issues, there could be data protection, there could be the concept of legal compliance, cybersecurity, cyber crimes, and the like. So, artificial intelligence, with the help of facial recognition, is likely to talk about the identification factor of a particular individual. I think that being so, this is going to bring on the table huge amounts of cyber crime as also cyber security issues. Why? With the artificial intelligence and facial recognition being used, I think identification of an individual becomes far more relatively easy. That being so, I think a lot of sensitive and personal information and data belonging to that particular individual is retina scanning, the facial recognition features are all captured by different applications. Not just that, these applications share out this particular data with a variety of third party service providers for a variety of purposes. I think that being so, from a data protection and privacy perspective, facial recognition is going to bring in distinctive amount of legal challenges. And all I can tell you is that this AI facial recognition will also require companies to have dedicated policies and also have specific compliance with the data protection and privacy laws in order to ensure that they are not facing the legal liabilities and legal consequences thereof. This is the key message that I wish to tell in terms of facial recognition. Next slide, please. Now, all along, we just thought that AI is only going to be part of cyberspace. But lo and behold, now AI is going a bit more further, and AI is now being made applicable to outer space. Wow, fantastic. As we discussed previously about the astronaut companion of AI, I think it's going to be very, very interesting that the AI law is not just relating to cyberspace, but it will also be important to consider the outer space parameters while coming up with dedicated legislations on artificial intelligence. Now, China has made its cybersecurity law applicable not just to cyberspace, but also to outer space, polar regions, and Arctic regions, and things like that. So, that being so, I think the outer space and AI would be a very, very interesting intersection from a legal perspective. Next slide, please. Now, AI will be used to power cyber attacks, is what some cybersecurity experts say. I think clearly now, all along we saw that artificial intelligence is used in a positive way. But however, it can also be used to strengthen cybersecurity, but used in a disastrous manner, I think it can be a tool for committing cyber crimes. I think cybercrime as a service has already begun. Now, recently, when I was looking at the kinds of cyber crimes that are happening across the pandemic, I was shocked. Why? Now, all along, we only thought that cybercrime was done by hackers and was done by organizers who are aware technically about the same. But now, apart from having online stores, now we already started having cybercrime stores. Wow, cybercrime is offered as a service. You can get cybercrime as a service, and with artificial intelligence popping up, I think it's going to completely complicate and bring about a pandemonium in terms of the cyber crimes. And artificial intelligence and cyber crimes would have to be effectively regulated under the laws, so as to ensure that there is some kinds of a message of deterrence that is going across to the cyber criminals. Next slide, please. Now, till here, I was just discussing with you the emerging trends that are happening across the artificial intelligence. But from now on, I would be mostly focusing on the legalities and the legal aspects surrounding artificial intelligence. And apart from that, I also wish to give you some kinds of analysis about what AI is before I go into the legal aspects. Now, ultimately, in a broad, simple term, I can only tell you one thing: artificial intelligence works on two things: data and data sets. So, the more and more data is fed into the system, I think the more and more accurate the system becomes. So, it makes use of machine learning and also NLP techniques, natural language processing techniques, in order to understand and come up with different kinds of reactive measures when data is fed into it. So the whole concept of AI revolves more and more on data. So data is now the new turmoil. And when I talk of artificial intelligence, I think data and data sets are going to be the two guiding principles behind which an artificial intelligence system would operate. So this is the whole background that I thought of setting forth before we discuss on the legalities, so that we are at least aware on the kinds of legalities surrounding AI. Now, number one, before we talk of any legalities, I think one of the primary things that we'll all have to understand is what's the legal, how will you treat AI? What's the legal status of AI? I think somewhere down the line, this question needs to get answered. And unless and until we're clear on what kind of status is given to AI, I think the concept of privacy, breach, notification, attributing of elements, liabilities cannot be decided. And unless we are clear on how AI is to be treated legally, I think these cannot be analyzed. So, one of the fundamental and core elements of AI and law is the legal status of AI. And somewhere down the line, we would have to grant some kind of legal status to AI, whether you want to make it a legal entity, you want to make it a company, you want to make it an agent. Yes, I think it's going to be an interesting ball game altogether. Now, when you start talking of AI as a legal entity, it's going to be very interesting. Does the AI legal entity have rights? Does it have any kinds of responsibilities? Now, for a non-human entity, how can you attribute rights? This is going to be a very interesting question from a legal perspective. Not just that, can I sue the AI entity, or can an AI entity sue someone? Is going to also bring in huge amount of discussion and debate. Not just that, I'm of the opinion that AI does not have any features as far as the company has under the Companies Act. So, that being so, I think it would have to be broadly looked into from a different spectrum altogether while granting legal status to AI. Next slide, please. Now, can AI be treated as an agent? Wow, that's an interesting question. So, in case, let's take, for example, the concept of chatbot. In case an organization makes use of a chatbot in its application or in its website or mobile application, what is the legal status of the chatbot? Is it an agent of the company? Is it a representative of the company? Is it a separate legal entity? Is what the law has to answer as we go forward. And I think some kinds of limited recognition have will have to be given the present adoption of AI in terms of business and business perspectives. So that's going to bring in huge amounts of discussion and debates among the various stakeholders while deciding what kind of legal status is to be granted to the AI. Next slide, please. Now, one of the key legal areas that AI is likely to bring on the table is bias nature. Now, let's look at how AI and bias is one of the key legal aspects that we'll have to look at. Now, like I said, AI revolves around data and data sets. That being so, if more and more data is relating to one party is fed, I think it's most likely that the AI system would be giving up biased results. Now let's take this in two examples. Now let's take the example number one. Now let's say that I'm looking to buy shirts for myself using any online platform. So I will now go look at Google and say, look, I'm interested to buy shirts. Which are my recommendations? Now let's say if a company A has a website and a company B also has a website, both are relating to shirts. Now the AI system, AI algorithm is having more and more data in terms of company A and not company B. So what is likely to happen? That in the result, A will be displayed in the top and B will be displayed down the line. Why? Because more and more data relating to A has been fed, company A has been fed. That being so, the key recommendations would be endorsed by the artificial intelligence to this A company. So in that manner, AI is likely to be showing up a lot of bias in this area. Now, that's from a common perspective. Now, let's talk from a legal perspective. Now, if I'm supposed to use AI in justice dispensation system, that's going to be a very, very interesting challenge. Why? In case more and more data relating to one party are fed into the AI system, I think it's most likely that the AI system will give predictions which are favoring one particular party whose data has been fed largely. That being so, it's going to cause huge amount of bias in terms of justice dispensation system. These are the two challenges that I thought of sharing with you from an AI legal perspective. And going forward, I think it's going to be a huge bunch of legal challenges as we discuss. Next slide, please. Now, AI, we thought it's only limited for a particular activity, but AI contracts have also started to emerge as a key discipline. Why? For all sorts of activities, AI is now being leveraged. Now, just imagine if an AI system enters into a contract with you saying that, hey, look, if you were to use my application, these are the terms and conditions, and unless you agree to it, I will not be able to showcase my website to you. Fantastic. Now the AI chatbot displays the contract, and you'll have to give your acceptance and consent to these terms and conditions. Now, from a legal perspective, AI contracts are likely to bring in huge amounts of legal challenges. Number one, are the terms put in a proper way? Number two, how can I exercise frustration of contract? Number three, is there an opportunity to discuss and negotiate the terms? Number four, is there a free consent? No, I think these are some of the areas which AI as a contracting discipline would bring on the table. Not just that, are AI contracts legally enforceable? Well, if you ask me as a cyber lawyer, what's the current status? Broadly speaking, though we do not have an AI law currently in India, I can tell you ultimately there's one thing that broadly we can talk of. AI ultimately makes use of data in the electronic format and makes use of algorithms. So it's nothing but an intelligence that is based on data. So that being so, when I look at the Information Technology Act, which is the Indian cyber law, I can correlate the same. And I can tell you that looking at Section 10A of the Information Technology Act, the AI contract is also a legal contract. And when I analyze this provision of 10A, it states that no contract should be denied legal enforceability solely because it's an electronic format. I think that being so, I can broadly tell you that the AI contracts are legally valid under Section 10A. But what brings an interesting challenge altogether is this formulation of AI contract is in accordance with the Contract Act or not? Are the basic essentials of a legally valid contract covered under this AI contract? See, that's going to be a fundamentally different ballgame altogether that we'll have to understand and analyze because it's on a broader term, you're fine. But what about the distinct nature of AI contracts? I think that's going to be one more key area that AI and law brings on the table with regard to being one of the legal challenges. I think this is something that all of us have to look at while pursuing AI for contractual obligations. Next slide, please. Now, AI is also likely to pose two kinds of privacy issues. Number one, personal privacy. Number two, data privacy. Let me just take you to a small example so that I can make these points clear. Now, right to privacy has now been made a fundamental right thanks to the latest Supreme Court judgment. That being so, every AI system has to have uh, privacy as one of the key areas. Not just that, uh, two kinds of privacy are likely to be at threat when I make use of AI. One, personal privacy. Number two, data privacy. Now let's take the example of personal privacy. Now, personal privacy, when I talk of personal privacy, it's very, very clear that it relates to the privacy of an individual. So it means that his body, his body language, his or her private parts, and things like that. That being so, when I'm making use of facial recognition along with artificial intelligence, I think this clearly brings in huge amount of personal privacy issues on that. My personal privacy is likely to be impacted in a detrimental manner. Why? Because we don't have any idea what kinds of entities are getting access to this information. Not just that, but from a cyber perspective, I can also tell you that what if they are trying to breach my privacy or confidentiality? That's going to be a very fundamental question that we are likely to put in. Not just that, suppose they're collecting the data relating to my personal privacy. I think it's very, very important and essential that we understand what kind of compliance do these entities have in place with regard to protecting my personal privacy. Now, in case they affect your personal privacy in any manner, I think now, specifically under Section 66E of the Information Technology Act, I think a case can be filed. And if there is an AI system that's being used, ultimately I can call an AI system as a computer, thanks to the IT Act definition of computer under IT Act. So when I look at the computer definition, AI system is also falling under the ambit of computers. And I can tell you that in case they're done in a dishonest and fraudulent manner, it's amounting to a cyber crime. And Section 66 of the IT Act, along with 66E, can come into picture. And in case they breach my confidentiality and privacy, Section 72 can also be made applicable. Apart from that, if it is done without my access or without my permission, I think you can also claim compensation under Section 43 of the Information Technology, compensation by way of damages. I think that's going to bring in a huge amount of legal exposures when I talk of invasion of personal privacy. Now let's talk about the data privacy. Now, data, according to me, when I look at the Information Technology Act and the rules and regulations made thereunder, I'm very clear. The law has come up with two areas of data. One is personal information. The second is sensitive personal information or data. Now, personal information is any information with which I can identify an individual. Maybe your name, maybe your email, maybe your passport, maybe your fingerprint, your retina scanning, your Aadhaar card, anything, any information with which I can identify an individual becomes your personal information. When I talk of sensitive personal data or information, the law is clearly defined. What's sensitive personal data or information? Your passwords are your sensitive personal data or information. Your health records, medical records are your sensitive information. Your sexual orientation, gender related information is your sensitive personal information. Your biometric information, your financial information is also your sensitive personal information. I think that being so, uh, AI systems would also have to look into the data privacy aspect from this perspective. What if my AI system is collecting sensitive and personal data? The moment it's collecting it, it becomes an intermediary thanks to Section 21W of the Information Technology Act. And once it becomes an intermediary, I think AI system would also have to have compliance with the Indian IT Act and the rules of IT Rules 2011. So that's the kinds of landscape that AI brings on the table from a privacy perspective. Next slide, please. So data privacy, as I told you, is not just going to have an impact on from what I have been talking to you about, but the decisions that have been formulated based on the data that has been fed is also likely to bring about privacy issues. Why? Does a machine of AI has the possibility of disclosing data? Wonderful. So what if the AI systems inadvertently discloses information to a wrong person? Wow, that could amount to huge amounts of privacy issues. And that being so, the sensitive personal data or personal information, in case are disclosed accidentally, what kinds of legalities are going to arise are going to be a very interesting gamut as we discuss. And more specifically, if it relates to any kinds of personal and sensitive data. So this is some kind of thought on AI and privacy. I think these are also going to be key legal issues of AI. Next slide, please. So I was just talking to you a while ago about the data protection regulations. Now let me take you to the data protection laws of this particular country called European Union. So the European Union has come up with this data protection regulation called the GDPR. So what is GDPR? What does it say? So in a nutshell, GDPR is a data protection law relating to European Union. So it says one thing: hey, if you're collecting any kinds of personal data which is relating to any of the European citizens, you will now have to be compliant under GDPR. You don't do that, you could get exposed to a huge amount of fine, which is amounting to 4% of your global turnover or 2 crores Indian rupees, whichever is higher. So that's the kind of exposure that GDPR has. And when I talk to you about AI, it's going to be a completely different paradigm. Why? When I talk to you about the different kinds of rights that have been given under GDPR, now GDPR comes up with three concepts: the concept of data controller, data processor, and the concept of data subject. So, who's a data controller? The person who actually controls the data and determines what data is to be shared and what data is not to be shared. Who's the data processor? The processor who just merely processes the data but is not having any kinds of rights to determine what has to be shared, what is not supposed to be shared. Third, data subject. Who's the data subject? Any particular person or entity whose information is collected, uh, that becomes the data subject altogether. So these three are the key parameters of GDPR. And I can tell you, an AI system can act as a data controller as also the data processor. Let me give you an example. Now, let's say that let's take the common example of websites like Amazon. I'm sure most of you here are aware about how Amazon operates. You purchase a product, you go make payment online, and the product gets shipped back to you. So that's the simple way in which how you purchase products on Amazon. Let's take Amazon operating through AI. So something like Amazon operating through AI would be a data controller. How? Uh, when it is sharing your information with the payment gateway for processing payments, it becomes a data controller. Why? It only shares the required information. It does not share all and sundry. Same way, it's also a data processor. Why? When I, as a customer, I'm making use of Amazon, I think I will determine and say what information I want to give and what information I don't want to give. Suppose I don't want to give my address, I will not give my address. So I am at liberty, and Amazon has got nothing to do but process the information which I'm sharing with Amazon, and it does not have any other right to actually determine what has to be there, what has to be not there. So that being so, it's also acting as a data processor. So in this way, any AI system would be also a data controller and data processor. But what becomes very interesting is what's the status of what's the legal status of the AI system? Is it an entity, separate entity, or is it some kind of an agent? And that, unless that is answered, I think attributing some kinds of data breach to the AI system would be a great challenge. Apart from that, I just shown you on the emerging trends that AI system is now being trying to be made use by Facebook for the purpose of remembering everything. I think this is going to be a fundamental legal challenge. Why? When you look at GDPR, I can tell you it's the kind of modern law that most of the countries are following. Personal data protection bill that's there in the pipeline is also to a certain extent based on the principles of GDPR. So that being so, GDPR has certain rights which have been given to the data subject. That means I have got certain rights, and one of the rights is right to forget. That's going to be a very interesting domain. Why? So if I'm supposed to if I instruct a system to be forgetting my information, it is supposed to forget my information. Now with the concept of Facebook trying to make use of AI to remember everything will bring huge amount of legal and policy regulatory aspects. And that being so, since this is one of the rights of majority of the data protection laws across the globe, is going to be an interesting coin altogether from a legal perspective. Next slide, please. Now, big data is going to be obviously having intersection with AI. Why? The moment AI is making use of huge chunks of data, automatically the concept of big data is already on the table. But what becomes very important is how will you try to analyze the data? Is there going to be some kinds of attribution made with regard to a consumer protection perspective? Yes, I think this is something that we'll all have to look at. Can the consumer protection law made applicable on the AI systems? That's something that we'll all have to increasingly look at. Not just that, I think a lot of critical information infrastructure is now being put up on AI systems. And what's important is how can the AI system protect and preserve these particular information and ensure that there is no unauthorized intrusion into this particular data. I think that's going to be popping up a huge amount of legal challenges with regard to AI and big data. I think uh, in case there is some kinds of misuse that is happening across or some kinds of inadvertent disclosures, is that AI system provided as a service? That's a very interesting gamut. Is it a defective? Okay, is it providing a defective output? If it provides a defective output, can the consumer protection laws be made applicable on AI? It's a very interesting and fascinating question. I think these are some things that AI is proposing to the world. I think we'll have to look at them as we discuss further. Next slide, please. Cybersecurity and AI are going to be in a very interesting areas as we go ahead, because ultimately it's going to be the concept of cybersecurity can be enhanced by automating the whole process. Why? What has to happen with human compliance? I think AI system, once it's used in cybersecurity regulation and compliance, would be of immense use. Why? I think it's going to bring in huge amounts of cyber security roles and responsibilities, and in case used in a positive manner, can ensure that that the organization is having good amount of cyber security mechanisms in place. And more specifically, I can tell you that specific kinds of cyber threats can be addressed in case AI systems are being used for enhancing cyber security. Why? Ultimately, in a nutshell, AI makes use of data and data sets. So the more and more you're trying to provide the information with regard to your cyber security, I think the AI systems are likely to give you predictive measures in a more accurate manner from a cyber security perspective. I think what kinds of parameters are not yet defined. We do not have in India a dedicated law on cyber security. Only the IT Act has just taken one step forward in coming up with a legal definition of cybersecurity, which talks about not just the protection of information on the device, but also talks about the physical protection of that particular device. I think a lot of work has to happen in terms of cybersecurity law, and we also started seeing different countries coming up with dedicated and distinctive cybersecurity laws. We've seen Vietnam, which has come up with the cybersecurity law. We also saw China, which come up with three distinctive cybersecurity laws during this pandemic. I think the roles and responsibilities from a cybersecurity perspective, the cybersecurity legal compliance would have to be increasingly the concepts that need to get covered under the cybersecurity law. I think these are some things that we'll have to look at, and what kinds of policies AI systems can also help in formulating, coming up with best possible practices for organizations in terms of cybersecurity. I think the level of due diligence and level of care to be adopted would also have to be specifically defined and implemented. And for that, a cybersecurity audit, whether any cybersecurity audit can be performed on AI systems. If so, what's the standard? It's going to be an interesting gamut. NIST has come up with certain draft AI principles. So I think it's opened up the draft for comments. It's going to be interesting to see how, in which direction that these AI principles are likely to be defined is now going to be very interesting as we go forward. Next slide, please. Now, cybercrime, like I told you, if in case AI is used for committing a cyber crimes, I think it's going to pose a huge amount of legal questions. Number one, the attribution nexus. To whom do you attribute the cybercrime? Is it the developer of the AI program, or is it the coder, or is it the company, or is it the hacker, or is it the attacker who had made use of some vulnerabilities on the AI to commit the crime? I think it's going to be fundamentally a different ballgame altogether from a legal perspective. Why? Because how do you treat AI is also going to play an important role in determining the landscape of legal liability with regard to cybercrime. And not just that, in case the AI systems become more and more intelligent with a lot of data being fed and they try to self commit the acts, I think it's going to be opening up new doors for legal discussions. The attribution nexus and is also likely to see huge amount of discussions among various stakeholders. Not just that, how do you subscribe civil and criminal liability for cyber crimes done by AI systems? Is going to be the question that is likely to be posing up different perspectives and different paradigms, and would also have to be intrinsically looked at from an AI legal perspective. I think these are some perspectives that are likely to bring across and define, add some kinds of colors to the legal landscape of artificial intelligence. Next slide, please. Now, the intellectual property is also likely to start seeing different paradigms altogether with the advent of AI. Why? AI is ultimately running off data and data sets. That being so, how can I protect the database of my AI system? Can it be copyrighted? Can it be patented? Can it be trademarked? A lot of questions would be populating in terms of artificial intelligence and the intellectual property generated. So what happens to the intellectual property generated out of AI systems? Who owns it? Is it the company that has created it, or is it the company who has deployed it, or is it the respective company who has actually leveraged it? I think these are going to be wonderful questions from an IP legal perspective. Not just that, if the AI system makes use of a copyrighted material, how do you address that problem? To whom are you going to address the liability? How are you going to affix liability? How are on whom are you going to file cases? Is it on the coder who has coded that program or an algorithm, or is it on the entity who has developed that particular system, or is it the entity who has actually made use of the system? Is going to be a very very interesting question. And apart from that, what happens to the output that is generated? Uh, can AI be inventor? Can AI become an inventor? Can take the seat of a inventor? And can AI inventions be patentable? How do you adjudicate IP infringement issues when I talk of AI? These are all some areas I thought are likely to be interesting questions when I talk of AI and intellectual property issues. Next slide, please. Now, the US Patent Office has clearly come up with a ruling. It has clearly told that artificial intelligence cannot be a legal inventor. So, therefore, I cannot seek a patent for an invention. I cannot claiming that AI system is an inventor. So, that's a very, very interesting question. But there now, recently, when you look at today's news, it's very clear that a response has been generated. Next slide, please. Now, this guy is actually trying to sue the patent office for deciding that AI can't invent things. Now, the USPTO has rejected two patent applications, and the question that is put before the court is that what's the creativity concept of artificial intelligence? How do you define which is creative when I'm talking of AI inventions? Well, that's going to be a fundamental question that all this lawsuit is bringing. But I can tell you that this lawsuit is going to altogether play a very important role in terms of determining the IP landscape of artificial intelligence. Next slide, please. Now, what's generally protected? What can be protected under AI? When I talk of artificial intelligence, IP protection, I'm of the opinion that three things can be done. Number one, apart from just using the algorithms, I think there has to be something more than that, more than the code. Number two, hardware and the combination of hardware and AI algorithms can be a good one. The process and working of the entire system or a device has to be clearly explained. I think these three could be the possible areas which can seek IP protection when I talk of AI related inventions. The hardware coupled with the algorithm, something just more than the algorithm, and the process and the working of the AI system. I think these three can be adequately protected in general from a IP legal perspective with regard to AI, specifically to India. Next slide, please. So AI is also going likely to bring in a lot of morality questions. Why? Because the moral standards are different from one country to another. So that being so, what are going to be the common fundamental moral principles are not being divided. And in case the AI exceeds the human beings in terms of moral issues, I think it's going to be a different ballgame altogether. I think given that our see basically one kind of argument is that the moral codes were only for human beings. Can the same moral codes be made applicable for AI systems? Well, that's an interesting question. I think there's no definitive answer to that. But um, as we go by, I think with the clear adoption of AI increasingly being used in a variety of different verticals, it's going to seem. I think let's expect that some kind of definitive answer to this question will arise somewhere down the line. Next slide, please. AI is also likely to bring in a huge amount of ethical issues. Now, the fundamental question that I thought of sharing all with all of you is that can an AI system be ethical? An interesting question. If so, what kinds of ethical standards are supposed to be followed by an AI systems, and why? Because the ethical standards again are going to be different from one country to another country. What may be considered as ethical in one country may not be considered ethical in another country. That's going to bring in huge discussions and debates from a legal perspective, specifically from an ethical and legal perspective. Now, second question that I thought of sharing with you is what kinds of ethical duty of care and norms of ethical behavior would have to be followed by an AI system? Well, if I were to say, see, in legal terms, we have the concept of negligence. So we say negligence is nothing but a breach of duty to care. So can I say that a AI system is negligent? How do I demonstrate that? So what kinds of duty of care is made applicable to AI systems? I think it's a very, very interesting question that we'll all have to really understand from a legal perspective. And what kinds of norms of ethical behavior does the AI system needs to follow will also be very interesting. And AI systems, can AI systems render professional advice? Well, that's a fundamental question. As a lawyer, see, there's a very interesting question that came forth. Can an AI system be used for providing legal opinion or legal advice? It's interesting. Now, so long as it is qualified under the term advocate, under the Advocates Act, I think I was just going through one of their articles which came up with this mention stating that so long as it qualifies to be an advocate under the Advocates Act, maybe the AI system can render professional advice. But however, it's going to be an interesting set of questions altogether. When I talk of professional advice, legal aspects, when it comes to these things being done by AI, and when I talk about medical and healthcare, it's very clear. When you look at the telemedicine guidelines that have been formulated by the government of India on 25th March 2020, they have clearly come up with the guidelines stating that, hey, in case you're an AI system, you're an automated system, you cannot predict my medical condition, you cannot prescribe my drugs, you cannot prescribe the treatment. So the doctor cannot make use of these for these particular purposes. It's very clear. In that way, I think we don't have any clarity whether the advocates can also whether there are concept of AI. What can I say? Advocates that can pop in. It's going to be an interesting question. And one more interesting question that comes to the picture is that are AI systems amenable under law? Excellent. I think this is one more question that we don't have an answer yet, but it's going to be a very, very interesting point when I talk of AI and law. Next slide, please. Look at this screen. I think this is, though it's a very hilarious statement. I think there's a lot of key learning that this statement brings in. What is considered to be harassment? Yes, I think the norms of behavior would have to be clearly defined when I talk of AI systems. Next slide, please. Now, AI is also likely to bring in a huge amount of challenges from a taxation perspective. Okay, let me tell you how. Now, we already started having AI based accounting systems. Okay, good. AI is now started to be used in accounting as well. Okay, wonderful, fantastic. Now, let's say instead of debiting an amount, the algorithm credits it. Now, for that particular error, how will you subscribe liability? Who is liable? Is it the coder? Is it the creator? Is it the deployer? Is it the company using it? It's a very, very interesting question. And apart from that, a lot of municipalities and corporations and nations across the countries have started using AI for a variety of purposes. And suppose they are used to calculate the revenue in a particular municipality. If they increase or decrease the revenues, how will you account for the liability? Because AI in taxation has now come up with a lot of different paradigm. There is predictive analysis, clustering, and classification. Now, let's take the example of GST. Let's say an AI algorithm is able to classify and say, look, this is under this bracket, this is under that bracket. So how would you account for that? Very interesting situation. Predictive analysis, it gives you some kinds of prediction and what happens to the legal position of those predictive analysis. That's a very interesting question. And apart from that, we also started to see driverless cars. Now, autonomous vehicles are some things which have already seen light, and the first accident with regard to the driverless cars have already started to emerge. That being so, the other day I was on a roundtable on vehicle automation and the future of cybersecurity. I think a very, very interesting amount of legal questions does vehicle automation bring in. Huge amount of questions. We talk about privacy, when I talk of data protection, when I talk about compliance, liability, I think manufacturers' liability, sellers' liability, users' liability, I think they bring in huge amounts of discussions on the table. So just to give you one small example, I thought I should share this particular scenario with you. Um I was on a car hunt the other day in January. I want to exchange my car for a new car, and when I started looking at different options, there was this beautiful car that populated MG Hector. Wow! The advertisement caption was very fascinating. It's internet inside. Amazing. I thought it's a new innovation in the automobile industry. So I thought, let me just go forward and look how is it an internet enabled car? How is it a smart card? Wonderful. So I went up to the showroom. I asked these guys four questions. The first question is, does your car have any kinds of insurance which is covering cyber attacks? They were bubbled. I said, why? Because it's an internet enabled car. At any time, if I suffer a cyber attack, does my insurance cover cyber attacks? Number two, the car has lots of sensors and immobilizers. Now, I told them, is there any sensor that detects unauthorized access or hacking? Wonderful. Number three, now I was told that this particular car collects a lot of information relating to the location, details of the owner, and things like that, the vehicle movement, and things like that. So the third question I posed to them was: is the data collected in compliance with the Indian IT Act and the rules and regulations made under? The last one was that they told me that they had some kinds of vulnerability patch which would be released to the customers at frequent intervals on particular dates and times. Okay, wonderful. Now they have taken some kinds of cybersecurity due diligence. Okay, now the question that arose was, in case I am not available at that time, my car is still vulnerable. Now, in case due to no fault of mine, I'm out of station or I'm not in a position to access my car and I'm not able to download the vulnerability patch, who's accountable? Still, my car is prone to vulnerabilities. So these are four questions that I have asked, and till today I've not received any reply. I think this is just an initial way forward when I talk of AI, and AI as a paradigm definitely is going to bring in huge amounts of different legal policy regulatory aspects when it's used in vehicles and things like that. Apart from that, AI is also used in multidisciplinary with multidisciplinary technologies like IoT. Any device that is getting connected to the internet becomes an IoT based device. So that being so, my smart watch, my smart car, everything becomes an internet enabled device, IoT. So IoT and AI is also going to be playing an important role. And likewise, blockchain and AI are also going to be playing very important roles. They can be merged together. And 3D printing, when I talk from the manufacturer's perspective, 3D printing is one more technology. And you could just not make 3D printed objects with 3D printing, but if AI is aided in that technology, I think the movement of those objects can also be done using AI. So this is likely to bring in huge amount of legal, uh, uh, shall I say, discussions and debates, and it's going to be an interesting ball game altogether. Next slide, please. And one another interesting area that I thought of dwelling on is certifications. So normally we have certain standards and certifications for systems. You have ISO, you have in IEC, you have a lot of standard regulations, right? If you want to talk about an industry, you have ISO 9001. Wow. You talk about information security, ISO 27001. That way, how do you determine the competency of an AI systems? Are there any certifications? And more specifically, in case there has to be some kinds of certification and standardization for the kind of quality that is to be maintained for AI systems. I think this is going to bring in huge amount of legal discussion, because AI systems are what kinds of certifications are minimum standards will be a very interesting question. Next slide, please. Liabilities are going to be a very, very fascinating space. So, like I told you, who is liable for a breach or a contravention done by an AI system? Is it the person who has written the code? Is it the person who has developed the system? Is it the company who's deployed it? Or is it the person actually who used it? I think it's very, very interesting question altogether. But basically, the concept of due diligence would be playing a very, very important role in determining the landscape of liability, shall I say. And when I look at the IT Act, I can tell you clearly that AI systems are nothing but intermediaries. AI AI resellers are intermediaries. AI manufacturers are intermediaries. AI and coders, I think, are also part of intermediaries. I think one of the fundamental areas that we can look at is in case they've complied and done their due diligence under the IT Act. I think it's Section 79 provides them for a statutory exemption. I think this is a very broad perspective that I'm trying to tell you. When you specifically talk of some specific instances, I think the questions are still unclear when it talks about liability. This is something just from a normal cyber law perspective that I thought of sharing with all of you. And one more interesting area is that when I talk of liabilities, how do I subscribe? There's strict liability, absolute liability, product liability, and things like that. But it's going to be a very, very interesting question. Next slide, please. And with regard to the legal remedies, I think what kinds of adequate legal remedies is going to be an interesting one, because when it comes to law of torts, tortious remedies, contractual remedies, civil criminal liable criminal remedies is going to be a very interesting system. I think the base line is that one of the ways that the AI systems breach can be affected is switch off the system. That we've seen that with the case of astronaut companion, but I think that's not the be all or end all of everything. I think that's going to be a problematic affair. Not just that, one suggestion that I thought of putting forth here is whatever are the problematic data sets, I think if you remove them, I think to a certain extent they would reduce the damage. And also, directing the system not to operate in a certain manner would also likely to be one of the ways in which you can seek a legal remedies. But what becomes very interesting is these are just hypothetical examples, but they are actually there is a far beyond discussion happening with regard to the AI and legal remedies which are being made available. Next slide, please. So, thought of sharing with you two interesting case studies. Next slide, please. So this was one of the landmark cases in the US where in 1994 a landmark judgment was given where the court came up with this statement saying robots cannot be sued, and it is the manufacturer's civil liability for any defective AI system. That's a very, very interesting case that we'll also have to consider. So robots as such are not being given any kinds of legal liability, but ultimately the liability has been put up on the manufacturer, and a civil liability. That means the compensation could be claimed for any defective system. I think apart from that, for a defective AI system, I think even consumer protection law can be brought into picture. That being so, this is just the early case studies that have happened in terms of AI. Next slide, please. This was one more case in the United States, which is the New York case 2007. The court held clearly that the manufacturer is not liable. Wow. A robotic gantry loading system had injured a worker. Okay. And the court observed that the manufacturer had complied with all the regulations. This is where I was talking to you about. See, if I have complied with all the due diligence and there's an unforeseen event that has taken place beyond my control, this is one more approach that the court has done. It has given statutory exemption to the respective company, and the manufacturer was not liable in these kinds of cases. But provided he was able to prove, demonstrate that he has complied with all the regulations made thereunder. Next slide, please. So Nelson versus American Airlines was one more such interesting case that I thought of sharing with all of you. This American Airlines had one of its planes as an autopilot. Wow. And an accident has taken place. And this accident resulted in causing some kinds of injury. Well, the onus was put on the American Airlines to demonstrate that the autopilot did not cause the accident, and it was an unpreventable cause that has actually triggered the accident. I think this is something we'll also have to look at from a criminal law perspective. And when you look at the IPC, you can also look at some points where we spoke about the consent and things like that. But here, I think if it is unpreventable thing, I think statutory exemptions can be given. But however, you will have to prove that you have exercised due diligence, and apart from that, you'll also have to prove that it was something beyond your capability. I think these are some fundamental principles. Apart from this, I thought of also sharing with you one more interesting case, which is called the Wisconsin versus Loomis case. This was in the year 2016. Now, an AI algorithm called named Compass was actually used to assess the likelihood of the defendant committing more and more crimes. So the judgment was given based on the result obtained from this algorithm. So since it predicted that there's a high risk, the court had actually given some kinds of penalty and imprisonment to this particular defendant. However, this defendant had appealed to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and there the appeal was also pushed off, and on the reason that the algorithm's output was transparent, and at the same time it demonstrated sufficient amount of transparency. So that being so, I think this is one more sensational judgment that you can talk of on the courts relying basically based on algorithms and things like that. So these are some things that I thought of sharing with all of you. And AI courts have already started to emerge. China has made an experiment. Estonia has also made another experiment. So in Estonia, when you started seeing it, uh, small causes, matters which are up to a certain period, certain amount of money, that is up to 7 lakh rupees or 7,000 euros, are now been adjudicated by AI judges. That's going to be a very interesting area. Not just that, in China, AI judges are now trying to make their AI courts, internet courts have started to emerge, where you can argue, and then based on the arguments, the verdict is given, and it makes use of AI algorithms for that matter. So it's going to be very interesting to see how these smart courts function. But they are functioning, they're handling matters relating to intellectual property violations, e-commerce issues, civil right matters, financial matters, product liability issues, and property issues, and things like that. And verdicts are also delivered through these applications called chat app. So this is something that's happening all across. And on-screen avatars of AI judges are also now being there, available in these AI courts. I think these are some examples of how AI as a technology can be leveraged, not just to the industry, but also to the justice dispensation mechanism. Apart from that, a lot of AI tools are now started emerging for lawyers. And I can tell you one such tool is called CaseMine, CASEMINE. It's a wonderful tool for all lawyers. It's designed for Indian lawyers. You can put up your facts of the case. You'll be getting the suggested arguments, the relevant case studies, case laws that you can rely on, the places where also the judgments where these case laws are actually been used or also displayed. I think these are just examples of how AI is also used in the legal profession. I think this is wonderful when I talk of AI as a technology. Next slide, please. So I'm of the opinion that yes, it's good that AI, the IT Act, has gone ahead to do something with when you talk of artificial intelligence in the broad sense. But I feel that I'm of the firm opinion that given the distinct challenges and legal issues that AI brings in, I think new laws have to be coming up. And existing laws were never drafted keeping in view the concept of AI. And I can also tell you that new policies, new regulations had to come up in this area so as to ensure that the legal nuances relating to artificial intelligence are handled in an effective and efficacious manner. Next slide, please. So this is what is necessary is only what is required. So I thought of just sharing with you all of these kinds of principles relating to AI and law. And I thought it's a very good area to enhance our digital skill set during this COVID period. And the world is now going to be completely running on AI, and it will be interesting to see how AI can swim itself in these choppy waters. And um that being so, it's very clear that lawyers and law students have to come out from the mental block for not understanding technology related legalities. I think uh, flipping it the other side, I think this becomes the need of the hour. And we'll also have to tell you that we must try to remove the preconceived notions that we have on AI and law, and go a bit more further, so that we are able to do some quality of lawyering in the country. And I can also tell you that this is now going to be the toast of the times. And if you're and if you're basically able to keep pace with the technology and then do your legal practice, it'll be wonderful. Or else you'll have to remain a mute spectator, because technology is never going to be ending as the world passes by. So that's something I thought of telling you specifically. Let's go to the last slide, please. So this is all I have from my end. I once again thank Law Essentials for this wonderful opportunity, as also Farhan and the team of Law Essentials, because it's clearly displayed that they are also emerging to be the galaxy of leaders, and they're giving a very good message to the legal community that look, there are these emerging technologies, and there are also a lot of emerging legal issues with regard to these technologies. Not just with regard to this having basic awareness. I think these kinds of webinars will act as key catalysts in determining the legal jurisprudence surrounding artificial intelligence. And I really hope that young lawyers and the law enthusiasts would basically try to understand what kinds of technology AI is, and uh, how AI as a separate legal discipline will be one of the most fetching aspects with the coming times, with the times to come. I think it's a wonderful opportunity, and once again, would like to tell a thank you to all the participants of this webinar, and also Law Essentials, specifically Farhan. And once again, wish to congratulate them for this thought leadership. That's all I have from my end. It's lovely talking to you this evening. I'm open for any questions.
Thank you so much, sir. I think it was a very insightful session. The audience have really loved you throughout the course of this session. You have gone into the in-depth aspects of the topic given to you, sir. I would also like to congratulate you for the Indian Avichis Award for the Excellence in Cyber Law, which was presented to you earlier this week.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations to you for this, sir. We would
Thank you
now
so
move on to
much.
the questions coming in from the audience. We have a question coming in from Mirza Mohiuddin Beg. Any special diploma or courses after LLB to get better opportunities in this sector, sir?
Oh, wonderful. I think currently there are no such programs available. I think if we get a good response, I think I'm sure that I would be loving to contribute and have some kinds of affiliation with Law Essentials to come up with a course on AI and law. So I think, yes, currently there are no specific courses on AI and law, but let's hope that with the coming times, they might have some courses as well. But what becomes important is that try to get some understanding on how AI systems operate and work, and what are the kinds of functionalities of AI. I think if you get some basic knowledge on that, that will be very helpful in analyzing the legalities.
We have the next question coming in from Anmol. In a Bollywood movie, Robot, there was an AI system developed which caused a lot of destruction. If this happens in real life in hospitals, space stations, or armies, who is responsible for the same, sir?
Fantastic question. I can tell you that it's going to be a very interesting aspect. Firstly, we'll have to understand whose fault is it, and in determining that, like I told you, AI system is fundamentally based on codes and algorithms. So we'll have to fundamentally analyze whether there's any flaw in the code or algorithm. If that's clearly visible, then the coder would be definitely responsible. I think they'll have to be responsible. Apart from that, the company who has actually created that would also be responsible, because they have not implemented the kind of what do you say? They have not gone through the due diligence mechanism. and without testing it, they've released it out in the market. They will also be responsible. And third, it's also the particular user, because if he's using it in a different way than what it is actually prescribed for, I think that also would settle certain amount of responsibility on the user as well. So this is what I can tell you from this particular scenario when I talk about the liability aspect.
Thank you, sir, for answering that question. We have the next question coming in from Anirudh Moore. Will AI help to put an end to the frauds? According to now, there are a lot of frauds. Would this be able to help bring in transparency?
Yes, definitely it can help in bringing transparency, because just recently we have just seen that AI is now being used to actually kind of handle the cryptocurrency frauds. I just recently came across the news that AI systems are now being designed to clearly identify the cryptocurrency related frauds that are happening. I think AI coupled with some technologies can help in, for example, blockchain. AI and blockchain to both put together can bring about the transparency definitely, because AI is still capable of getting altered. The data can be altered, but like I told you, AI in conjunction with blockchain can be a good solution for transparency. Why? Because blockchain ensures that there is an immutable nature of it, and whatever you put on the block, the data cannot be altered or removed. If you were to do any alterations, new block has to be added, and that will itself get added as a new block altogether along with the date and time. So it's clearly making the whole system transparent. And if AI is used in conjunction with blockchain, it can be 100% enabling transparency. It can bring down the fraud level to a large extent.
Thank you, sir. We have the next question from Arijit Ghosh. As AI is developing, so is the hacking is getting developed. However, there are situations when hacking is considered to be ethical, but from the very core term, hacking is the violation of rights.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you, Arijit, because see, there are a lot of people called ethical hackers, and ethical hacking programs are happening. No offense to them, but I just want to tell you one thing. As a law student, as a legal professional, I can clearly tell you one thing, that ethical hacking is legally not permissible in India. Of course, worldwide, you have hackers and crackers, white hat, gray hat, and things like that. But when you talk merely from the present Indian legal position, I think even doing ethical hacking amounts to unauthorized access and can be amenable under IT Act. Even an ethical hacker can be brought under the ambit of IT Act. So that being so, I think it's going to be a very tricky situation altogether. Even ethical standards of hacking are not being defined anywhere under the present clause. So even an ethical hacker is a criminal according to the present Indian cyber law and the rules and regulations made there under.
I think with this we can come to the end of the session, sir. Thank you so much for joining with us. It was a really insightful session. The audience has really loved you through the course of the session, sir. Thank you. It was
Thank you.
really a pleasure hosting you, sir.
Thank you so much. Wonderful opportunity. All the best. Stay safe. Apart from being maintaining personal hygiene, also maintain cyber hygiene, and also sanitize yourself properly. And let's hope we get to victorious over COVID-19 and not become a victim to digital coronavirus. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for those wonderful words. I would also like to take this opportunity to present the next edition of our webinar. We are trying to introduce integrative law for the first time in India, wherein lawyers are portrayed as peacemakers. This is a monthly series which will be at the last Friday of every month. The speakers will be Ms. J. Kim Wright. She is an integrative lawyer, innovative systems change agent strategist from USA. Ms. Nabila Siddiqui, research cum teaching assistant at DNLU MP. We also have Nitya Bansal, who is an advocate, mediator, peace studies scholar from Costa Rica. Do join in for the session. The details of this are given in the chat box. Thank you, audience, for attending this session.